Can you tell us a bit about the place you work out of right now?
Sure. So New Lab is a facility really dedicated to people who are making hardware and hard goods and building things. And it's a brand new building. I think it's 83,000 square feet. And it's just like wonderfully appointed with a cafe and a huge machine shop and spray booths and a lot of also co-working desks and places where just companies can work adjacent to one another and people who are building stuff. So it's a great resource of mind and matter and hands as well. It's cool. You can all come visit or write me. Like one in a serially, like.
Thank you. It was really great.
Sure.
I'm just curious how you got over that major incident of fear around the key woman insurance and kind of moving into embracing the potential for failure or not getting investor money.
Turns out like the fear of not having the money is even bigger, so it's like, I guess, when you really want to make something and do something, it propels you, I guess. And also, every day now I realize like I'm going to screw something up. And then tomorrow comes and it's no big whoop. And I think that has been a huge lesson for me as a founder.
Jessica, what's the most exciting thing you're working on right now?
Okay. So actually we came up with a table the other day, which is, well, there's two things. One was a commission for a client that is this table that will have between, like 10,000 and 122,000 fiber optic cables that come into the surface of this piece of corian, which is with plastic. And so the effect is that, and you can take this humongous rope of fiber optic cables and put them in front of the output of a projector and play anything in a different aspect ratio on this table, but the colors are extremely muted and strange because they end up being averaged. Each one of the fiber optic cables is like a pixel, and it averages the colors that are coming into it. It's very like a real life image processed kind of thing. And then this other one was a table that imagine you just tore something off the wall and you tore a piece of the wall down and you put it like this, and like so we're just doing like a fun table like that.
Thank you, Jessica. It's a beautiful message on how you make music from mistakes. And I'm curious, in the non-material world of relationships and working with people or in our life, how is your peripheral vision? If there is any benefit, how is that benefiting you? Or how do you make it work?
In terms of, relationships, I don't necessarily think that there's a difference. I think it shapes my personality because I'm super distracted. Like I'll see stuff going on out here, right? And be like, oh, pretty, like that people aren't necessarily seeing. And so that kind of has definitely given me a little bit of a distraction problem. And but at the same time, it also, I think that's what makes me excited because, I'm like, I make these mistakes and it gives me a sense of wonder that I think also keeps me really youthful. And that part actually is contagious.
Hi there.
Hi.
Wonderful products and things you're making. I just have a question. I'm very big into words and names, and it probably says this on your website, but rock, paper, robot, where does that come from?
Okay, so it was like rock, paper, scissors, and then, okay, it's kind of natural products, natural, elements, and then put in the tech, and we came up with it a long time ago, right? So it's when robot was kind of a cool thing to have in a name, and now, and now it's sort of like your band name or something, like, it's a little bit of a joke. So that was the thought, and we kind of had to impress upon people that we were different. We're robot-y. I usually say RPR now, to be totally honest, but yeah. And also, robot doesn't make, like rock, paper, scissors doesn't exist everywhere in the world, so it doesn't translate. It was an oversight. Thanks. No pun intended.
Thank you as well for that imaginative presentation. It's so refreshing to spend a morning with all this negative stuff we're all confronted with to just kind of open up the top of the head for a little while with you. We were all asked to answer a question, what is something you will never do? And I would like to ask you that question.
Well, I came up with that. So I like to play this game, right? Like I was actually thinking, like I'm never gonna be like a world class. I'm never gonna be an Olympian, really. I think that I've missed that boat. I am never gonna be a childhood prodigy. I will never have a cameo on MASH, for instance. I mean, I can keep going. Like there's so many. I probably won't raise unicorns. You know, like.
Your stuff is just amazing and interesting, and it's interesting to hear about the different things you're working on. You know, it sounds like doing that commission piece is really a unique, one of a kind thing. But then when I look at like the table and the chairs, that you know, I see that as something you could have in a small space that could be widely applicable to people on the other end of the economic scale. Like that could be a mass thing. And I was just curious, like you're a startup. I'm sure your investors want you to make money, but do you see yourself kind of like, do you want to make things that are widely used and wide-reaching to impact a lot of people? Or are you just kind of like,
yes,
I'm going to try all these technology things and see what kind of sticks? Or is it really like, what?
You know, I want to do many different things. So one side of it is the functional art, right, which is like going to be expensive, and it's not, you know, nobody really needs a levitating table. Let's face it. You know, that's not something that we have to widely produce, and so we keep it in a different sector of the market. But I think, you know, the other things that we think about is something that we would like to be very ubiquitous. Like these are the new surfaces. How can we think about, and even on a different level, how can we think about if you can change the furniture in a space really quickly? What are the implications for how that space can be used? So an example is we're doing one mechanized one of those Ollie tables, right? And so at first I was like, I don't really want to plug in my table, but I like the idea of plugging in 20 tables or 100 tables in a room, right? So now you have an app, and if you have to have dinner for 40 people dancing over here, you can change it. Another kind of application would be, you know, if you're, let's say you're Dunkin' Donuts and you have a lot of foot traffic in the morning, so you put the tables up, and then you want people to stay and sit and buy more stuff in the afternoon when it's kind of slower, then you can change the decor really easily. And then you end up actually just by manipulating these pieces of furniture, you can actually like affect your revenue. And that's cool. And then even more implications, like can places that you know, are used for retail during the day be changed around and be yoga studios at night, or schools, and to really accommodate new lifestyles that people are having and behaviors.
So I could ask a huge question about creative process, but I'll try and just make it specific. Mm-hmm. I'm interested in how you manage all of the inspiration that you inevitably come across. Like, do you have a system? Do you have just a time of day when you review a notebook? Like, I don't know if you have any tips around dealing with so much constant inspiration I'm sure you find.
I'm basically like a shotgun, right? So like I'm just like, if I see something, I try to write it, even if it's on my hand. I usually actually have writing somewhere on my body. There's different notes everywhere. I take a lot of pictures with my phone lately, and I use that as this constant feed of, you know, like, oh, cool, look at how that shadow is, or look at that reverse shadow that, you know, a building is having on fog or something like that. And so, you know, I just really constantly take notes everywhere. And then I am not so good at like uploading and consolidating. So I end up a lot of piles and things, like scrappy stuff. And you know what, I was actually even realizing I used to do this thing in my notebooks that when I would finally understand something or make a connection between two disciplines, I would have this eureka moment. I'd put it in a little cloud and be like, yes, I just nailed that. I connected physics, like electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, same variable, you know. And I would go back sometimes and I would realize that the cloud was the exact same cloud in another notebook. I'm like, I just had that eureka twice or 3 times, which means it's not a eureka. And so like there's also a lot of repetition that happens, but I think that's cool too, because you can end up seeing your patterns of what you like. But yeah, I wish I had a system. I have no idea how to do that. Yeah.
Jessica, this is actually a follow-up to the lady a few moments ago asked a question about your products. I think most of the people in this room want to buy at least some of the things we saw on your screen. In particular, like the chair and the wall chair and then the wall table. Can you talk about the sort of mundane aspects or critical aspects of figuring out how to manufacture them in some type of, I don't want to say en masse, but in a way that many people in this room or not in this room can buy these very cool objects and bring them into their homes?
How much time do you have? So it's really tough. And it's really tough to manage. There are three things: cost and quality and time. And you can kind of have two of those things. So we're constantly trying to have this balance and looking at domestic manufacturers and overseas manufacturers, how you do this. When you start to design, when you design a $20,000 table, some of those tables are $20,000. And like people are like, why is it so expensive? That's like paying for my fertile years, okay? Like I was in school for a long time. Yeah, expensive ovaries. So I basically have, it's really different to build at that price point than to build at a lower price point where you have to imagine kind of the lowest common denominator is interacting with a piece that has many moving parts. That the Ollie table is more like a transmission than a table. And even the chair, someone's like, well, you can't have a string on the back of a chair because there's a choking hazard for babies. I'm like, well, what about the fact that you can buy string in the world, I'm like, is this natural selection? Maybe I don't know. What's our business model? But I guess it's kind of like a balance of all these things of like safety and how you can imagine people are going to use it, and understanding the entire supply chain from distribution to customer service and the actual making of the parts, and are you warehousing, and there's so many moving parts, and luckily there are people who love to do that stuff, and we bring them on as team members. But
follow up, where do you stand in this process now?
So we're starting to manufacture right now in China, and we're also doing some stuff here in the U.S., which has been really hard, but we're trying very hard to do that. And we do a lot of other stuff in-house. So we build the levitating things in-house. And, we have some outside fabricators who will do CNC things if we don't have a certain machine. Now we have them in the new lab, which you'll all see. It's like a total mixture of things. It's interesting because there are so many different core capabilities in different countries. I'm really interested in seeing how flexible that can be, that supply chain can be, and how manufacturers can start to work together. We hopefully will enforce some of that.
So this is a little nerdy, possibly. So in relevance to your last question, at what point when you're prototyping something, you're designing an idea, and you know that you're gonna have to figure out manufacturing, supply chain process, and things like that, and based on complexity, like at what point do you where do you gauge that end result? I'm in a similar business right now. So how far do you invest into the prototype before you decide this is just going to cost $1 million to make, and a follow-on question, do lean manufacturing processes or lean processes, are they involved in your process at all?
So, we've been starting to do these things, which are like go, no-go points, which any stage in a manufacturing or in a prototyping stage can be like, okay, have we assessed the supply chain? And right from the beginning, we have to have a little bit of an understanding of these things. So what's the supply chain? What's, can they handle what volumes we think is their market demand? How many moving parts are this? Where are the materials going to have to come from? How can we replace certain materials? So there's kind of always this background process of knowledge of all of these things that add up. And then as you go through it, I don't think we ever actually stop. We'll put something on hold, but it just means that we don't have enough information yet, and we don't have the resources to get it. So I think it's, I mean, it's a hard question to answer, because it's like I don't actually even think any product is actually done. Everything to me is still a prototype, even when, you can't tell a client that, but it's $20,000 a day. Well, it's real. No, it's not. But I think it's a real balance and just constantly keeping we have maybe 42 different parameters that we try to assess and give our best guess at any given point. And then if it turns out that maybe, we can't devote the resources internally to something, we'll say, let's put this on hold. And try to make those kind of be really iterative and quick about it, because you don't want to spend too much time, as I'm sure. Yeah.
All right, extra round of applause for Jessica.
Thank you.